Before I throw you into the proverbial deep end regarding specific details about the doctrines of grace, I want to spend just a brief moment to speak about the issue of theological honesty and why doctrine matters in general Christian living. Whether you like it or not, everyone is a theologian. Just ask anyone what they think about God regardless of whether they are a Christian, an atheist, or an agnostic. We all have our opinions about who God is and what He is like. You may say, I just want to worship God and love Him from the bottom of my heart. Okay, but tell me, who is God? What is He like? What happens to you after you die? What's the future of life on earth? These are not abstract questions. They are things we ask from the time we are young to the time we are old. We can try to suppress them, but they still continue to haunt us in our minds. Although the definition of theology is the study of God, theology has a bad reputation for being dry, abstract, and irrelevant for everyday living. Most Christians assume that we can experience God in a personal way apart from doctrine. We try to say, don't put God in a box, or I don't have a theology, I have a relationship. But that kind of thinking is impossible. You cannot truly encounter God without knowing who He is, what He has done, and who you are in relationship with Him. You may have heard the story of the blind men and the elephant. A group of blind men heard that a strange animal, called an elephant, had been brought to the town, but none of them knew of its shape and form. Out of curiosity, they decided, we must touch and feel in order to inspect it. So they sought it out, and when they found it, they each placed their hands on a different part of the elephant. The first blind man grabbed a hold of its trunk and said, this thing is like a snake. Another grabbed the elephant's ear, saying, it seems like a kind of fan. As for another person whose hand was upon its leg, he said, it's like a tree trunk. The blind man who placed his hand upon its side said, the elephant is like a wall. Another felt its tail, describing it as a rope. The last felt its tusks, saying that the elephant is long and pointy like a sword. The moral of the story is, we all have different experiences and ways in which we perceive the world around us. Therefore, whenever we find ourselves at odds with others, we should be humble and recognize the limitations of our knowledge, our need to hear different perspectives, and trust that others may grasp the truth that we do not, because at the end of the day, no one can truly have the full truth, just their own opinion of it. Now, when applied to Christian theology, the story says that no one has the full, comprehensive vision of absolute truth regarding who God is. We need to hear all the various streams of Christian thought if we are going to grasp the truth about spiritual reality. However, the story has a very obvious flaw. As the storyteller, I am presupposing that you know what an elephant really is, and what it looks like. How could you know that each blind man only sees part of the elephant unless you claim to be able to see the whole elephant yourself? So too, how could you possibly know that no form of theology or doctrine can see the whole truth unless you yourself have the superior comprehensive knowledge of God you just claimed that none of the various streams of Christianity have? Hence, when you have people going through the Bible in its entirety, as opposed to just cherry-picking whatever seems relevant for wherever they're at for any given situation, they will quickly discover that yes, the Bible is actually quite comprehensive on a whole range of issues, whether it be angels and demons, sex and marriage, law and grace, or in this case, the doctrines of salvation. Instead of having a reductionistic form of Christianity that looks down the nose towards theologians, people will start to make opinions about which side of the arguments they will stand on, and how and why they came to that conclusion. When we read through the Gospel accounts, we see that Jesus was very harsh in his dealings with the Pharisees and their hypocrisy, how they created all of these extra biblical traditions at the expense of ignoring the weightier matters of the law, such as grace, mercy, and justice. But remember that Jesus was just as harsh towards the Sadducees. When it came to the issue of the resurrection of the dead, the Sadducees knew that the scriptures did indeed have something to say about the issue, but they chose nonetheless not to believe in it. This wasn't just passive uncertainty, they flaunted their unbelief with pride while still expecting the prestige and honor afforded to rabbis who did believe in the resurrection. But Jesus just wouldn't take them seriously. In the same way, let me ask you, When you read the Bible, do you sincerely take the time to nut out the issues that you are presented with? Or do you just find yourself zoning out, flipping pages, and skipping what you don't think is important? Do you know for a fact that the Bible does have something to say about X, Y, Z, but you choose to sweep it under the proverbial rug and play dumb whenever the questions are asked? If I'm talking about you, may I ask that you hit the pause button right now and take the time to pray and ask God whether your heart is truly in submission to the Bible as God's Word, or if you're living a life of secret rebellion. If you've been following my channel thus far, you should be able to tell that when I study the Bible, I do so assuming that it could be understood clearly, and that God can be known for who He really is. And I want to take on the debate between Calvinism versus Arminianism in the same way. So I understand that for some of you, you may have had prior exposure to those doctrines by way of your own study, listening to podcasts, or watching videos here on YouTube, while for others this will be an exciting new territory. Either way, I want to encourage you to have an open mind and a teachable spirit. Until I upload the next video in this series later this week, what I want you to do is to read through the book of Romans, chapters 1 through to 11, where Paul takes the reader through a roller coaster ride through the issues of sin, law, grace, justification, election, and perseverance. Just take the time to read it and let it sink in, as I promise that when you've taken the time to read the book of Romans thoroughly, all of this will make more sense. So until then, feel free to leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.